Okay guys, this video is going to be about making the scabbard for my sword. The first part is going to go through the pattern making. I'm going to talk about what I think I want for a design, and I'm doing a test strip right now to make sure that my design works. So I'm not going to destroy a whole bunch of leather on something that didn't work. So I'm going to make a small sheath or scabbard for right now. And then if I like it, I'm going to definitely make it into a, or extend it out and make a final scabbard with it. I also got a round knife from Tandy, which I bought. I'm not sponsored by Tandy at all, so don't take that wrong when I say I got it from Tandy. I bought it from Tandy. I was going to make a real elaborate little sheath for it too, but I decided in the process of making the pattern that I should focus more on that scabbard. Since I'm doing a test and seeing what's going to work and what's not going to work, my attention should be there. So I'm making a quick scabbard for the round knife too while I'm doing all this. As you will see later on, I explain it. Also, since I'm new to video and stuff like that, I had a desk light on, so it kind of diffuses the way I look and stuff like that. So I'm learning, getting better at it and stuff like that. So enjoy this next part of the video. It's I'm gonna call it Scabbard making a leather scabbard part 1. And then I'll take you guys through the entire process all the way to done. I'm going to explain what I'm going to do, and then off camera I'm actually going to just do it. I record off my phone. It doesn't have a lot of time, so it's just easier to explain what I'm going to do it off camera, and then show the next part of what's going on. As you can see, this is recorded after these next videos you're going to watch have been done. So I have the leather all cut out for it and stuff like that. So I'm going to start working on to the video of actually putting all this together and how I'm going to plan on doing that and stuff like that. So enjoy. If you guys have any ideas or tips or any suggestions you'd like to give them. That'd be awesome. Maybe I might just incorporate that idea into the scabbard build because it might be a better idea than what I've got. So I'm up to options and possibilities, guys. Well, enjoy the next section of the video. Thank you. Alright guys, well, lighting's kind of weird here, but we'll try getting through this. I'm going to explain what I'm going to do, and then I'll do it off camera, and then come back with it all done, show you what it's like, and then we'll move on to the next step. And with everything, you got to start with a pattern first. But since I just got the round knife today from Tandy Leather, which was awesome, I'm going to make a sheath for this, and I'm going to do a sheath for the sword. And then what we're going to do is, because just to see how it looks and what the design I have, I'm only going to do about 6 inches for the sword, and then that'll decide whether I want to do it bigger and do it that way, or if I should just go into redesign it and think about the way I'm going to do it. For both sheaths on the outside, I'm going to use the 4 to 5 ounce, and then for the middle, for the sword, I'm going to use 8 to 9 ounce, and we'll do that. But on this knife here, because of the way it's designed, and I'm also going to put a snap that comes over the top and holds it in, and it'll be stitched over on this side. And then so I'll have to make a pattern of the blade, move it to a different location, and the cat wants to join me. Move it to a different location, and then I will be able to do the entire pattern, and then do the strap that's going to come out this side, come over and snap shut. And then I'll have to do a little square that goes on the back so that the back of the snap's not rubbing against the steel there. I have to do a little square of leather, and I'll skyve that down to next to nothing, so it'll protect the leather from that snap when you push it shut. But that'll be a nice sheath, because the only thing I got was this with it. It's cheap, and I want to really showcase the knife with leather, and then we'll go on to this. The sword, all I'll have to do is trace out the outline of the sword. Then I'm thinking it'd probably be best to leave 1/8 of an inch on both sides, and then do 1/4 of an inch in the 8 to 9 ounce. That'll give me my thickness. It'll give me some blade movement in there, so it's not squeaky tight. And the reason why I want to do 1/4 of an inch is because when you do a lace pattern, which is what I'm thinking on there, here's the edge of the leather here. I don't know if you can see that, but here would be the edge of the leather here, and 1/8 of an inch in is where you want to put the holes to do your stitching. So that means, because I want that 1/8 of an inch, and since it's going to be the outside area for here, I'm going to want that 1/4 of an inch, so it's 1/8 inch on both sides, so I don't have that stitch where it rips through and pulls into that other area. So that's how I'm going to do that and design that. This, I'm going to just have to do the blade, then like I said, move the pattern somewhere else, and then draw out a pattern. I want to come out in the same thing, 1/8 of an inch, and then that's going to be my actual stitch line for this, 1/8 of an inch, and then come up into here 1/8 of an inch. So it'll do like this does, where it kind of slides in there by curving into there. And then this side will be sewn together, and then this side will have the little loop that comes over and then snaps, is how I'm going to do that. So I'm going to do that, draw up all the patterns, and I'll come back when the patterns are done, and you'll see exactly how I got that planned, and then we'll go to cutting leather. Alright, now I cut out my patterns, and when you leather work, you always work from a pattern. So I kind of changed up how I was going to do the round knife. To make the pattern, you got to lay it down because the handle's thick on something flat. So I had to make this pattern from here. So I made that pattern, so that gave me the actual dimension of the knife, instead of going like this where it's going to be at an angle because it's sitting on the thing. Here, maybe I can show you better. Here we go. See how it kind of angles there? I wanted to get a good profile of that knife. So instead of setting it, the paper down, setting the knife on it like this, I set the paper down and then I set the knife like this, so that I got a really good angle for the purchase of that. So then I was able to make this. It kind of looks like a dwarf helmet if you look at it right. My pen's kind of weird, so it started smearing a little bit. But I decided to do this. Instead of doing the strap with the button, I'm going to do 2 buttons here. And the knife will sit here, and then my stitch line will be in here. So that's what that sheet's going to be like. And then I'm going to just use a line 20 snap on here, where both those circles are. I just kind of dropped a snap down real quick, so I'd have an idea of where the circles are. And to get those lines and stuff like that, I have a French curl. I bought some French curl patterns to help me out. So that's going to be both the front and the back. I'm not going to actually have any thickness for that blade. That's why I left the 1/8 of an inch there, so that I'd be just fine. So that's pattern for both sides of the leather. Then the sword, what I had to do was you draw the sword on your paper, and then you come out and you mark out where you want the gap to be, which would be this line on there. that's on there. I don't know if you guys can see it there. I got it up. The way the lighting is here, I got to figure out a better way to do the lighting. But and I also take off my glasses so you don't get the reflection. So that'll be the sword and the give inside there. And then this is actually what's going to be the 8 to 9 ounce cut for the leather. That pattern. And then the little holes are going to be placed into here. Now, since this is just a mock-up to see if I like the way that fits and everything like that, I'm only going to do 6 inches of a sheath for right now, because maybe my idea is not right and it's not going to fit the sword the way I was hoping it to be and stuff like that. So I'm doing a little bit of mock-up. That way I only ruin 6 inches of leather than 32 inches of leather. So I have my patterns done. This will be out of the 4 to 5 ounce leather. And then what I can do is I can just set my strap cutter, which here, let me get my strap cutter real quick. I'll just set my strap cutter to that size, and then I'll cut the strap, one long strap, and then I'll cut out of the 8 to 9 ounce. I'll do the same thing. So this, I'll need to cut 2 of these because these are going to be on the outside of the 4 to 5 ounce. And then the 8 to 9 ounce is going to set on there like this, and that'll be the thickness for the thickness of the sword. So I'll have that thickness in there with the 8 to 9 ounce, and that'll give me my raise and create the pocket. And then I'll have another 4 to 5 ounce of this thickness of this pattern going on top of it. So with the strap cutter and cutting it by hand and just making a long strip, I'll be able to get everything nice and uniform and even until I get down to the tip. I used the French curl to do the tip, and what I did is, as I did the outline here on this one, I used my dividers, and just in spots I would poke holes, and then I would just line up my French curl to the holes that were there, and then just followed the French curl, so I had a nice straight line instead of a hand drawn where it goes like this. That way my pattern's more smooth and it's a nicer transition. It's also going to make it so that it's a blunt tip sheath instead of a point tip. So if I do walk into a store, and sometimes you don't realize somebody's walking behind you, and you turn around and that sword hangs out past your leg a little bit, and you do accidentally hit them with that sword, it's going to be a blunt, nice round tip, and it won't do anything to them. I mean, granted, it's a training sword, and it's used for full force combat, so it's designed. It's not going to cut people, but still, it's just in case something happens. Always have that layer of safety in there. So that's how these patterns are going to look out. And then the round knife will sit in there just like that. It'll have a little bit of room to play, but not a lot. And then I can just unsnap it and then slide the knife in and out of the sheath. And that way I'll have a really nice leather sheath to go with this. Then what I'm also going to do is, for the sheath for the sword, okay, that's going to be the 8 to 9 ounce, and then the 4 to 5 ounce is going to be the covering for the sheath, and this will be the makeup for the thickness. I'm going to basically take, and that 1/4 inch that would be there, I'm going to do that a dark brown. And then in the center here, I'm going to do my Viking runes. And I don't know if I'm going to do my name in runic, or if I'm just going to do the compass rune and the protection rune and the money and love rune and stuff like that. But I also want to kind of do a tribute to Warcraft, so I'm going to have the Horde symbol there, since I've always played Horde when I played Warcraft. And so I'm going to do that. So that'll be the runes going down here. And then that will be an antique stain. So when I put the sheath all together and put the leather together and do all that, it'll really give a good representation, because I'll have just one rune cut into there, and then I'll have that placed on there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do what's called a double loop lace. I've kind of shown it on a couple of other things I've done. On the holder for my Kindle, I have that done, and I really like the look on that. It looks really cool, and it's not just a single loop and gets kind of boring. It gives the eye a direction to go to. I just wonder how thick it's going to be, though, because it's going to be about that thick. So when it's going to be on the frog, it'll be held up. But when I'm thinking up by where the frog is, I'm going to have 4 or 5 straps up there. And then in that area, I'm going to put a stiffener so it keeps it nice and stiff in that area. And then I'm going to do I was thinking a fur right there on that sheath. So that really gives it the Nordic look. So you'll have the dark look around the blade, kind of like the Raider blood. It's been raided. And then you'll have the nice runic sticking out because of the antique gel that I'll have on here. So anything that's lower than the surface that's cut into there will turn a dark color, and everything that's resin will have kind of like a tannish color to it, so it'll give it that old look. This will give me a test so that I hope it looks really cool when I get done with this test. But that's how I'm going to do all this so far, and that's how I did it. And this is the same way. All I did was trace the blade onto here at first, and then I took my divider onto here, and then I took and traced this pattern onto here. So that gave me my blade shape, my proper blade shape. So that's my blade right there. And then I took the divider at 1/8 of an or 1/4 of an inch. That'll give me a 1/16 to the stitch, or 1/8 to the stitch, and 1/8 to the edge, the burnished edge. So I think that'll be pretty good. But we'll see how that goes. But that's how it's gonna look. So it'll be kind of like that. I do kind of like the way it's gonna look, though, because it's gonna have the leather look, and then it's gonna have the two. Well, these are gonna be silver. I wish I had a tarnished brass. That would look really cool on that, especially with the brown. I like that brown stain the way it's coming out. So that's the patterns. You always want to go off your patterns, though, because if you, it's easier. I could buy a whole sheet of this for 50 cents, or I can buy a whole sheet of leather for $100. So I would rather ruin the 50 cents because I didn't get the pattern right, or I needed to change something, or my design change is going to take place, and I can build it out of that and see how, give me a rough estimate of what it's going to look like before I even put knife to leather and start cutting it out of that, because that's going to be a lot more expensive for the mistake. And doing this mock-up is going to help me. So instead of doing the whole 32 inches in leather, I'm only doing 6 inches. And then this will give me an idea, so later down in the road I can hold on to that mock-up, and then I can build off that as I get better and better at leatherworking, and I start getting really developed into leatherworking. So that's my patterns. That's how I'm going to set these up. And like I said, this is going to be a double loop lace on it, because I think that's going to look really pretty. It's going to give it the old look instead of the stitched look. And like, I do everything by hand. So I have a hand strap cutter. I I don't use machines. I don't use punches. I don't have a sewing machine. I don't even own a sewing machine. So this is how it's all going to go. And that's the full design for that. So I'm going to stop now. I'm going to put the patterns on leather and cut out all the leather. And then I'll come back to you guys. But for that process, I'm not going to show it on camera. On my phone, since I record on my phone, I don't have a lot of memory. So it stops after so much time. And I lose a whole bunch of video and didn't realize it stopped. So I'm going to cut out the leather. Get it straightened out. Before I set the snaps on or anything like that for the sheath for the round knife, I'll show you the cut of the leather, and that way you'll see the fresh cut leather, and I get to use the round knife to cut my leather. Woo-hoo. So yeah, we'll see you guys in a little bit.